A warning. This episode contains discussion of sexual assault that may be disturbing. Listener discretion is advised. As a note, we reached out to Tim Ballard's attorney to request an interview. Our request went unanswered. And one last thing. After Tim Ballard left the anti-trafficking organization OUR in 2023, it was renamed OUR Rescue. Its new leaders say they do not condone Tim Ballard's alleged actions while part of the old organization. The Tim Ballard of today is very different from the pre-allegation Tim Ballard of 2023. In many ways, he's almost unrecognizable. For example, in March 2024, Ballard appeared at a political event at Trump's hotel, Mar-a-Lago. Nothing surprising there. But here's the twist. It was an event specifically for Catholics. And not just ordinary Catholics, but politically active and very conservative Catholics. Now, this is Tim Ballard. The Tim Ballard who wrote books theorizing about the founding fathers being influenced by angels that show up in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints literature. The same Tim Ballard who was a close personal friend of M. Russell Ballard, one of the highest up officials of the LDS Church. The same Tim Ballard who said he would always be faithful to the LDS Church. Here he is in an interview in early 2024.
I will never betray the church. Never denying my testimony of the Book of Mormon. I will never deny my testimony of Joseph Smith. I will not do those things. I will not. I've had all these offers from these evangelical churches dude, you tell this story. You can start your own church. You can have a huge. I said, I'll never do that. This is the Church of Jesus Christ.
But just a few months later, he was changing his tune. At a political event, Ballard stood off to the side smiling. Then John Yupp, the CEO of Catholics for Catholics, said this about him.
When I was talking to Tim back there, he's starting to consider the Catholic Church and the Catholic faith.
So what happened there? What changed? Where's Tim Ballard now? Short answer, he's down a long road from where he started. This is The Opportunist, an original podcast from Podcast One. You're listening to the 8th episode of a 10-part series on Tim Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad. I'm your host, Sarah James McLaughlin. In this episode, I want to bring everyone up to date on what Tim Ballard is up to now. How, despite being hit with multiple lawsuits and effectively being excommunicated from the LDS Church, he's struggling to try to stay relevant. Since the beginning, the LDS faith has been a central part of Tim Ballard's persona. Infamously, he was close personal friends with M. Russell Ballard, the president of the Quorum of 12 Apostles, essentially a very high official in the LDS Church. And as we explored in previous episodes, he also had a close relationship with Glenn Beck, who was another prominent member of the church. In the early days, before Operation Underground Railroad, Ballard wrote books about the history of the LDS Church. It was this faith, Ballard claimed, that inspired him to start OUR in the first place. When allegations started coming out accusing Ballard of sexual assault, he wore his faith as a shield. But right now, one of the biggest questions swirling around Ballard is whether he's officially been excommunicated from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. One thing you can't deny, though Ballard tried for a bit, is that the church made a rare public statement denouncing him by name. In an October 2024 interview with Fox 13's Adam Herbets, Ballard's lawyer, Mike Eisenhut, refused to give a straight answer on the topic. Here's the exchange with Herbets.
There's nothing more personal than your own relationship with your own church. And I know Tim has been very public about how frustrated he is, for example, with the church's statement Was he excommunicated, and was he wrongfully excommunicated?
So I won't answer specifically to what his status is or was with the church, only because I do want to protect what I understand is private and needs to remain private for many reasons.
So that's a lot of words to essentially say no comment. But, I mean, is or was, Ballard's lawyer won't say that he hasn't been excommunicated. And remember, the LDS Church did make a pretty damning statement about Ballard, saying that he had taken advantage of his close relationship with M. Russell Ballard and described his behavior as morally unacceptable. But regardless of whether official news has come down from on high, it does appear that lately, Ballard has been in the market for a new spiritual home. We mentioned his attendance at the Catholics for Trump event, where he seemed to be testing the waters. But it seems he's landed elsewhere. According to a video post on X in September 2024, Ballard was rebaptized into a new congregation, the New Life Covenant Church. This was after all his hemming and hawing about how he'd never deny the LDS Church. According to the website for New Life Covenant Church, they are an independently affiliated, non-denominational Protestant congregation. So definitely not LDS. Their site also states, "The Bible is the basis for our faith. The Bible is God-inspired revelation, a book without error, exposing and expressing the will of God." This kind of seems like it would be a problem for a formerly devout member of the LDS Church, because a central tenet of that faith is a belief in the Book of Mormon as a companion text to the Bible, offering a fullness of the everlasting gospel. And yet, the Book of Mormon contradicts the Bible in several major ways, on fundamental issues like the nature of original sin and salvation. But despite these apparent obstacles, Ballard seems to have made a switch, which I would imagine has been difficult for someone whose identity, whose professional brand really, was so intertwined with the LDS faith. Here he is addressing his new congregation.
The adversary almost crushed me in December and January, and all sorts of persecution that I never could have imagined.
A note. We don't know exactly what he's referring to with persecution and the adversary that almost crushed him, but based on the timing, there is a pretty good chance he's talking about the women filing suit against him.
And I realized, Tim, you can't do this work anymore unless you give everything to Jesus.
After Ballard spoke, he got a pretty sweet round of applause. If he's looking for new followers, more support, adulation, and external validation, it seems like he's found it. So that's where Ballard stands in search for a new religious home base after ostensibly being ousted by his longtime church. Another situation that's still very much developing is the number of active lawsuits against him. We've gone into these in depth in previous episodes, so I'll just do a quick rundown here with updates on where they stand. First, there was a suit filed in fall 2023 on behalf of 5 women: Celeste Borges, Mary Hall, Sasha Hightower, Kira Lynch, and Bree Ryder. This suit claimed that Ballard exploited their religious faith and sexually assaulted them under the guise of the so-called couples ruse. Suzette Rasmussen, an attorney representing the women, said this:
"All of the sex assault cases are just starting into discovery."
Shortly after the women's lawsuit, Celeste and her husband Mike Borges filed another suit, accusing Ballard of sexual assault and grooming, which they claim ultimately led to their separation. That case is also ongoing.
We've also filed an anti-trafficking federal case that will be served in the coming weeks.
In October 2024, another lawsuit was filed against Ballard, this time in federal court. 6 women allege that Ballard, the self-styled anti-trafficking activist, had himself engaged in sex trafficking. This latest action claims that Ballard violated U.S. anti-trafficking law. In big capital letters, the suit proclaims the anti-traffickers are the traffickers. Specifically, the suit has been brought under the Trafficking Victims Protection Reauthorization Act, or TVPRA. This legislation allows victims to bring a civil action against a beneficiary who profited or gained from trafficking activities. In this case, like coercing and manipulating women into situations where Ballard could sexually exploit them. Though he laid low for about a year while the dust settled, now he's punching back by filing his own lawsuit. In October 2024, Ballard filed a countersuit against the 6 women who have accused him of sexual assault and trafficking. Ballard's legal team claims the women's allegations are false and defamatory, and demands they pay for the damage done to his reputation. Additionally, Ballard's suit also accuses Celeste Borys, who worked for OUR as his executive assistant, of illegally accessing his computer and using the information as part of the lawsuits.
As far as anything major coming up, we do have a public hearing. It's an evidentiary hearing that will take place on December 30th and 31st, where Mr. Ballard is trying to claim that Celeste Borys stole documents, despite he was constantly in a drunken state and that he was sexually assaulting her.
Interestingly, Ballard's defamation lawsuit doesn't say anything about his accuser's claims that he's been excommunicated from the LDS Church. The fact that he's not going after them for that might yet be another clue that he was officially ousted. Because if Ballard is making a point of suing his accusers for saying false things about him, and he wasn't excommunicated, then why wouldn't he add that claim into the suit as well? In some ways, it's not shocking that Ballard has decided to hit back against his accusers.
It was a bit anticipated based on the fact that this is his same modus operandi. He's done the same thing the past 10 years. He threatens to sue people if they speak out against him. On his end, it's really outrageous, outlandish that he's doing this to the victims, but it just shows his desperation.
Desperation indeed. It's a very audacious move. Even Alan Mortensen, another one of the attorneys representing Ballard's accusers, was taken aback by the turn of events. Here's Mortensen speaking to the local media in Utah.
We did not anticipate that he would file defamation cases against our clients because they're telling the truth.
But Ballard went ahead and filed the lawsuits anyway, and he has some pretty wild claims about why these 6 women accused him of sex assault and trafficking. He said in his social media post that the women are somehow angling for financial gain.
And this is all for money. That, because I know the truth. I know the evidence. It kills me.
But the most straightforward reason for multiple women to accuse him of sex assault and trafficking would be that he's guilty of sex assault and trafficking. Ballard has also claimed that women made their allegations specifically to stop his anti-trafficking efforts. Because, as Ballard has implied before on many occasions, anyone who is against him must be an evil supporter of child sex trafficking.
These women in Rasmussen and Mortensen will be known as, at best, accomplices of child trafficking.
Never mind the fact that all of these women volunteered to help an organization where the entire purpose was to eliminate child sex trafficking. It doesn't make any sense. But it doesn't have to make sense. It just has to muddy the waters. Along those lines, Ballard's defamation lawsuit also included video evidence to support his claims that he never broke the rules of the couple's ruse while on operations. In one self-recorded clip, Ballard discusses participating in the couple's ruse with Krista Casey, a woman who volunteered with OUR and is now part of the lawsuits accusing Ballard of sexual assault and sex trafficking.
Krista Casey played my girlfriend, and we had very serious rules as always. No kissing on the lips, no touching private parts outside or inside clothing. And I attest that we kept those rules. We didn't do either of those things to each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Perfect.
And we were very respectful to one another.
Absolutely.
She was a lady the whole time.
Thank you. I agree.
And what was I? Was that good?
You were totally respectful. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Ballard filmed these check-ins, which in hindsight seems a little bit strange. It's almost like he was thinking ahead and wanted to have the videos in case he needed to cover his tracks. I mean, who uses a phrase like "I attest" in casual video? And this part is pure speculation, but the way that Ballard filmed the video, how he said his lines, and then he pointed the camera at Krista, how he asked, "What was I?" It feels almost like he's leading the witness, like he is directing her to agree with him. Also, maybe he was completely respectful of Krista that time. That doesn't really mean he didn't sexually assault her and other women on other occasions. No one is claiming that Ballard has assaulted every woman he's ever come in contact with every single chance he's had. But several women who didn't know each other all have very similar stories about how he did assault them. After the break, Ballard and his lawyers face off with a former Miss Utah. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. The holidays can be a great time of year, staying in on snow days, sipping hot chocolate, and enjoying the warmth of being around your loved ones. But let's be honest, the holiday season also brings its own set of stressors. Therapy is a great way to bring some comfort that lasts, no matter the season. Whether you've experienced therapy or are considering it for the first time, it's a helpful tool for managing stress, improving communication, and empowering yourself to be the best version of you. If you're thinking of starting therapy, BetterHelp is a great option. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, and works with your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and if it's not the right fit, you can switch therapists at any time with no extra charge. Find comfort this December with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/opportunist today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/opportunist. I think gift giving is best when you can surprise someone with a little luxury that they'd never buy for themselves. And for that, I turn to Quince. Quince offers everyday luxury at prices that make sense, like their iconic Mongolian cashmere sweater starting at just $50. And if you're not into sweaters, they've got 14-karat gold jewelry, Italian leather handbags, and European linen sheets, all priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. If you're wondering how, it's because they partner directly with factories and they cut out the middleman. Even better, Quince only works with ethical, responsible manufacturers and uses premium fabrics for that true luxury feel. I love my Quince skirt. It's stylish, comfortable, and surprisingly affordable. Their cashmere sweaters are next on my list. Gift luxury this holiday season without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/opportunist for free shipping and 365-day returns. That's QUINCE.com/opportunist. Now, back to the story. In addition to slinging a defamation lawsuit against the group of women accusing him of sexual assault, Ballard is also going toe-to-toe with Amy Morgan Davis. A former Miss Utah winner from 2004, Amy filed suit against Ballard in 2023, accusing him of sexual assault. And Ballard hit back by accusing her of, you'll never guess, defamation. In this case, both sides are releasing text messages between Amy and Ballard to bolster their claims. For example, Amy said in her lawsuit that she felt uncomfortable with Ballard, but a text that she sent to him said that she was, quote, very comfortable around him. Here's Ballard giving a read on it.
It's so simple. Her text messages speak for themselves. She alleges.
But here's the thing. You need to consider the context in which her messages were sent. So at the time, she was participating in the couples ruse. She was basically auditioning for the chance to join an upcoming mission. So it's understandable that at the time, she might have said that she felt comfortable with Ballard and what was going down, even if the opposite was true. She was sending flirty messages just like Ballard had asked her to. And we also have to remember that women like Sasha Hightower have spoken about Ballard's practice of dirtying up their phones by sending salacious texts to each other in case they have to prove that they're really in a relationship. And along these lines, Alan Mortensen, the lawyer representing Amy, argued that Ballard's texts to her were part of a grooming technique to trick her into doing things she wouldn't otherwise do.
If you read through the text, you can see that he's inviting her to go to strip clubs, inviting her to be flirtatious.
Ballard doesn't acknowledge any of this context or any of his part in influencing what Amy was texting him. Instead, he tries to use the messages to claim that she was so attracted to him that she crossed the line.
She alleges that I assaulted her one night. I allege that she assaulted me.
This could just be a classic case of projection. So simple a schoolyard kid would understand it. I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you. Here's Ballard's lawyer Mike Eisenhut trying to defend his client.
We know that what's being alleged never happened. We know that. The evidence is super strong of that.
Ballard's attorney has pointed to the clips to say that Amy doesn't look stiff or uncomfortable as she says they followed all the rules. But A, that's very subjective, and B, as we've discussed, Amy was under pressure to act like everything was on the up and up because she wanted to stay involved in OUR and help save children. None of us have any idea what's going through her mind at that moment. Amy's attorney, Alan Mortensen, sums it up pretty well.
These women would trust him, and now he's blaming them for trusting him. If he touched under false pretense, that by definition is sex assault.
So that's where things stand as far as Ballard counterpunching. Meanwhile, some lawsuits against him aren't moving forward for other reasons.
One lawsuit against Tim Ballard and the nonprofit he founded has been dismissed.
A suit brought by Bree Ryder for emotional distress after her eye socket was shattered during an OUR training session was dismissed because Ryder had signed a liability waiver. And another, filed by a woman accusing Ballard of silencing and intimidating her, was dismissed for lack of evidence. Another suit was filed by Kelly Suarez, who sued Ballard for defamation over how a character in Sound of Freedom, based on her, was depicted in the film. The suit alleged that the movie's depiction of her as a child sex trafficking monster was defamatory because she was never involved in trafficking. But recently, that claim has been seriously undermined.
The plaintiff in another lawsuit against Tim Ballard has been convicted in Colombia.
Suarez's defamation claims against Ballard hinged on the fact that years after the raid, she had not been convicted of any crime. However, in September 2024, Suarez was found guilty of pimping a minor in Colombia.
Now a Colombian judge has found her guilty of pimping, but not trafficking.
In an email, Ballard wrote that this conviction vindicates him and undermines the allegations made against him. He wrote in part, "This conviction proves the value of our work to protect innocent children and continues an unbroken string of failures in cases against me, which courts consistently dismiss for lack of evidence, substance, or consistency." In the meantime, Suarez's camp is raising money to appeal the verdict. Here in the States, Ballard was recently deposed as part of the defamation lawsuit he's filing against his accusers. Here's attorney Suzette Rasmussen again.
So on one of the defamation cases, Mr. Ballard sat for a 7-hour deposition over 400 pages. It's currently under a protective order, which we're trying to get the judge to remove so that the donating public can know of the fraud that's occurred.
This case is still very much developing, and we will post any updates as we get them. Outside of the many lawsuits and countersuits that Ballard is involved with, Ballard is also still very active on social media. In late October 2024, he posted a throwback to the Columbia mission that inspired Sound of Freedom. His Instagram also shows him attending a premiere of another child trafficking movie at Mar-a-Lago called Line in the Sand. It all has a feel of deja vu. And it seems like Ballard is still very much part of the Trump MAGA circle since he's still getting invited to these events. In mid-October, he posted videos of himself at the Mexican border teasing another major mission by captioning the post saying, "Something huge is going down right now."
We're still down here, literally on the port of entry at the border with Mexico. Thank you to CBP, HSI. We were able to do the operation. I can't give you all the details quite yet. They're going to come out over the next couple of weeks, but it's going to be mind-blowing stuff.
Some people in the comments share their support and say that they donated to the cause and that they're praying for Ballard. Some even echo his attacks against the women, accusing him of assault and trafficking. So far, Ballard's strategy of painting his accusers as people on the side of sex traffickers has been at least somewhat successful. That being said, there are also other comments that question his version of events and accuse him of being a criminal and a fraud. It also appears that Ballard has moved on from the Spear Fund, an anti-trafficking organization that he worked with after leaving OUR. The Spear website no longer mentions him as a senior advisor, and Ballard doesn't list Spear on his social media page with links to his various projects. However, his page does encourage followers to donate to yet another anti-trafficking initiative. This one's called Aerial Recovery Group. Their website describes them as an organization that trains veterans to respond to humanitarian crises around the world. On his social media, Ballard is frequently seen wearing hats and jackets featuring the group's name. He's also taken credit for some of their work, writing, "So honored to be working with Aerial Recovery Group, training up a new generation of undercover operators, and another incredible operation completed by our dear friends over at Aerial Recovery." If Ballard rose to fame as the leader of an anti-child sex trafficking group, it seems like all that's keeping him somewhat relevant now is his work as a MAGA influencer. For example, posting a video responding to far-right commentator Candace Owens' controversial anti-Zionist ideas.
Hey guys, I want to respond to what Candace Owens said about Israel. Kind of broke the internet with her comments.
And even hosting an interview alongside Jim Caviezel with then former President Trump.
Hey everybody, welcome to a very special episode of the Tim Ballard Podcast. Here we are at one of the top golf clubs in the nation at Bedminster, here with the 45th President of the United States, Mr. Donald Trump. Mr. President, thank you.
Well, thank you.
For being our guest.
We just saw a great movie and unbelievable. And Jim, you were really incredible.
Thank you.
And you in real life were really incredible. So I want to thank you on behalf of a lot of people.
So in many ways, Ballard has experienced a fall from grace. The allegations made against him being forced to leave his longtime church. However, one place where he's maintained something of a foothold is in the arena of conservative politics. After the break, we'll dive into Ballard's continued presence in conservative circles and how his MAGA credentials could position him for a major comeback. When you think about businesses that excel at combining comfort and style, like Aldo Yoga's activewear or Allbirds shoes, it's not just their products that stand out. Behind their success is a powerful tool that makes selling seamless: Shopify. With Shopify, businesses of all sizes have access to tools to streamline transactions, whether it's online, in-store, or on social media. From the #1 checkout system on the planet to Shop Pay, which can boost conversions by up to 50%, Shopify takes the stress out of selling. That means fewer abandoned carts and way more. If your business needs to grow, and let's face it, whose doesn't? Shopify is your go-to. Sell wherever your customers scroll, stroll, or swipe. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/OPP, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/OPP to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/OPP. Now, back to the story. Despite all the allegations against him, in February 2024, Ballard was invited to speak at the Conservative Political Action Conference, or CPAC, which is essentially a who's who for right-wing pundits and politicians. He took the stage to speak against the Biden administration's approach to the southern border.
I would go so far as to say that unwittingly, our own agencies on the border, again, not because they want to, because they're being told by the administration, they have become a child sex trafficking delivery service.
In March, Ballard was honored at a political event at Mar-a-Lago, where he received a Heroic Patriot Award. And in July, Trump's former lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, had Ballard on his broadcast at the RNC.
Welcome back. This is Rudy Giuliani with Emerald and with Tim Ballard.
It should be mentioned that Giuliani himself is facing a slew of legal issues. He's been disbarred in New York and just recently was caught hiding assets from the Georgia election workers who won a $148 million settlement after Giuliani's false claims about the 2020 election. His own lawyers recently filed a petition to drop him as a client. At the RNC, Giuliani told Ballard not to be discouraged and assured him that he had many allies and a promising future. In addition to Giuliani, Ballard has also recently appeared alongside prominent right-wing personalities, including Charlie Kirk and Tucker Carlson. And Ballard has worked to maintain a level of popularity and notoriety in those circles. In a way, it makes sense that these are the types of people Ballard associates with and turns to for support and legitimacy. Folks like Giuliani, Tucker Carlson, and even Trump himself have had their fair share of legal issues that they're eager and willing to blame on their political adversaries. They're likely to write off lawsuits like the ones against Ballard. So staying a part of this boys' club keeps him safe in some ways. It gives him a group to turn to for support and acceptance. Ballard's goal could be to continue tapping into that active, engaged base of viewers and reflecting their views back at them so that he can get them to donate to his causes and foundations. And it appears that Ballard is willing to consider just about anything that might get him more engagement on social media. For example, Ballard and his longtime friend, soon-to-be former Utah AG Sean Reyes, considered filing a lawsuit against a junior state senator. Back in July 2023, Utah Senator Nate Bluin tweeted, "Reminder that OUR Rescue is a criminal organization." At the time of the tweet, Ballard had just stepped down as the CEO of OUR. Here's Bluin speaking about it in an interview with Fox 13.
Maybe the phrasing was a little bit too strong just based off of the timeline that we're in and having not had these things go through a full trial yet, but I think the point stands.
When Bluin made this point, Reyes saw an opportunity and texted Ballard saying, "His statement that OUR is criminal is defamation per se. Would make a good case. Thousands of views and retweets." Essentially, Reyes was saying the quiet part out loud, that he and Ballard were just looking for social media engagement however they could get it. Here's Bluin again.
Pretty funny, to be honest, that the Attorney General and Tim Ballard are worried about the opinion of a second-year freshman Democrat from Salt Lake County, so I was a little surprised in that regard.
Eventually, word that Ballard and Reyes had Bluin in their crosshairs made it back to the senator. I spoke with Bluin about his experience of being pulled into Ballard's orbit.
So I think you became on everyone's radar in the same sphere as Tim Ballard because he was texting about you with AG Sean Reyes.
Yeah, that was a really weird revelation. I was definitely shocked to have that brought to my attention.
Bluin was surprised that Ballard and Reyes had bothered to concern themselves with what he was tweeting about.
I guess I didn't really know what to think because it was hard to imagine why they were concerned about my input on anything here.
Do you have any speculation on why they were concerned?
I think to have an elected representative making public statements that are potentially damaging to their organization, to their credibility, doesn't make them look good. Again, it seems like there's better uses of time for high-ranking government officials. I mean, Sean Reyes represents the entire state. I don't know why he's concerned about the tweet that I made.
And no, Sean Reyes did not run for re-election in 2024 and has been replaced by Derek Brown. Back to Bluin.
I thought it was just hilarious that they were focused on not one of the more powerful folks in Utah. It seems like they should be spending their time doing something a bit more.
But really, is it so surprising that Ballard and Reyes would be on the lookout for any possible way to raise their profiles? As the saying goes, all publicity is good publicity. However, there are consequences to that kind of blind attention seeking. Bluin wrote an article for the Salt Lake Tribune about the whole situation, and he had a powerful statement about what happens when politicians like Reyes lose sight of what's important. He wrote, "When true competition for ideas ceases to exist, politicians are incentivized to cater to the echo chambers that keep them entrenched. They focus less on the core role of government and more on culture wars that divide us." In some ways, that is what Ballard is doing with his social media presence, catering to the echo chambers and the culture wars. But at the end of the day, Ballard being willing to go to these lengths to stay relevant to the MAGA crowd really could pay off for him. In 2023, Ballard's political future looked headed for dire straits. Utah Senator Nate Bluin put it this way.
Oh, I think we're past that. I think he's done. I think his political career is over. I don't think there's any recovering from what he's been through.
Back in 2023, it seemed pretty safe to bet against a Ballard comeback. But things are very different now that we know the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. As we know, Ballard has been cozy with the Trump administration before, speaking at the White House as co-chair of an advisory council on trafficking. With Trump returning to power, there's a chance Ballard could be welcomed back into the fold with open arms. Rumors are even circulating online that Ballard could be appointed to the Department of Homeland Security, where he previously worked. There are still many outstanding lawsuits and investigations against Ballard that could potentially go to trial. But Trump himself is no stranger to litigation, so the administration might not balk even if Ballard becomes a convicted felon. Who knows? It might even be seen as a badge of honor. For instance, President-elect Trump recently named Matt Gaetz as his pick for Attorney General. Though Gaetz subsequently withdrew from consideration, there's a strong parallel there because Gaetz, like Ballard, has faced his own allegations of sexual misconduct, including a Justice Department investigation into allegations that he had sex with a 17-year-old girl and broke sex trafficking laws. Also, Trump nominated Pete Hegseth, another man accused of sexual misconduct, to lead the Department of Defense. So if Trump can try to elevate one man accused of sex crimes to some of the most powerful positions in the land, who's to say that he couldn't toss an appointment Ballard's way if he wanted to? With everything her clients have been through, Suzette Rasmussen has a strong stance on whether Ballard should have a future in politics.
We obviously hope for justice to be served based on public safety and what he's done to our clients. If Mr. Ballard does gain any political advisory role or seat, then a lot more information will be coming forward, as he is unfit for any public office or to serve on any type of advisory role.
We'll just have to wait and see what happens. On the next episode of The Opportunist Tim Ballard Unmasking a Hero, we dive into the recent federal lawsuit against Ballard, which accuses him of sex trafficking. Thank you for tuning in to The Opportunist. This episode was written by Nani Okwulogu, produced by Abby Newhouse, and executive produced by Connor Powell. Until next time.